Good morning. It's Tuesday. It's time for the RotoWire Rundown. My name's Keith Stewart from Read the Line. And of course, I am joined with my partner in crime, the one, the only, the award-winning Mr. Len Hochberg from RotoWire, RotoWire's senior golf writer. Len, the 88th Masters in all of its glory is behind us now. So why don't we put it in perspective just for a second? You know, take me through what your takeaways are after Scottie put together another pretty impressive performance.
Yeah, I guess that the takeaway is who's gonna catch Scottie, who's gonna stop Scottie, because it was so dominating. It really wasn't the entire tournament. It wasn't like he came out on Thursday morning and took control of the tournament, but there was very little time where it looked like he couldn't win, and he eventually was the last man standing. Everyone else made a mistake except him, and that's kind of hard to counter if the other guy is not going to make a mistake at a course where there are a ton of mistakes. So, my favorite stat or factoid coming out after the Masters, however, is, when I saw that Scottie Scheffler's won 9 tournaments, and the 9 tournaments that he's won, he's never won a tournament on the PGA Tour past the second week in April. So I think that's more coincidence than anything else, but he's been around a few years and he's been dominating, and he's never won the rest of the year. So I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking like if I were another golfer, and this is what I would latch on to.
So you're saying there's a chance. I love it. I love it. I love it. I tell you, I guess my biggest takeaway, other than Scottie, and we'll talk about him more in a moment, but that golf course, as you know, I was there last week, and I'm down in Hilton Head, hunkered down here in the clubhouse here at Harbor Town. But the golf course at Augusta National on Friday and Saturday was so hard to play, to compete on, to contend on. And those guys at the top of the leaderboard played so very, very well. I think that my biggest takeaway from this past week is that these guys are getting better at a rate that's faster than ever before. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with technology, and also that there's a lead dog out there like Scottie that they know they have to play very, very well. But that golf course on Friday was as impossible as I've ever seen a major championship for a day of competition. I mean, the wind was literally blowing, no hyperbole, no exaggeration, 30, 40 miles an hour. It was insane. And then on Saturday, the place got super crispy, and you could see it. They even watered the greens. At a major championship, they watered greens on Sunday morning just to make sure that they didn't lose the play. I mean, it was playing so difficult. And the fact that the field stroke average was only 3 over par on Friday just blows my mind, because that was everybody, even the guys that didn't make the cut. And then on Saturday, it was 2 over par. These guys are getting really, really good, and they're going to need to be, because Scottie Scheffler, I love the month thing, but Scottie's starting to do some things that might beg a comparison or two. And I don't like to go down that road, but in your opinion, what do you think's next for Scottie Scheffler? What's the next thing he needs to do?
Well, the interesting thing, the wild card, is that he's about to become a father. And you and me, we both know, and millions of people out there, all who are listening right now, know that it just changes you. And you don't know how it changes you until it changes you. This is Scottie's first. I mean, I don't think he's going to, all of a sudden become an average golfer. But I don't know, some other guys, I don't know, Jordan Spieth, has he been the same golfer since the birth of his kid or kids or something? And I wouldn't be criticizing him for that, but it's just a fact of life. So, that's going to happen very soon. It's going to happen before the PGA Championship, and then he's going to be very busy being a dad heading into the PGA Championship. Of course, it seems that if anyone can refocus and get ready for Valhalla, it is him. But again, so you're saying there's a chance?
I think 2 things. One, he's starting to create some history, which is unique. And he's definitely a unique athlete and ball striker. There's no doubt about that. But there's only 3 guys that have won 2 Players and 2 Masters: Jack, Tiger, and now Scottie. Those are pretty good guys to be on a list with. There's only 4 guys that have 2 green jackets before the age of 27: Jack, Tiger, Seve, and now Scottie. Man, I tell you, he's starting to do or trend to do those things that, like, when he goes to certain places, he just wins. If you look at his 9 wins, 4 of them are at the same place. The Players obviously won, Masters another, but WMP always won twice, and he's won twice at Bay Hill. Who else did those things? Jack and Tiger. So I've been very critical of Scottie over the last year that he hasn't been a killer and he hasn't been a closer. So I'm happy to see this trend for him going forward. I mean, he's gonna need to get a nanny or something, because guys like Rahm and Brooks and some others that didn't show up here, or even the ones that did, Max and Colin, understand how much better they need to get. And there's some guys in the prime of their career that are going to need to push hard. And I think they're willing to do that. So I think for us, it's just going to get even more and more exciting, which leads us into another signature event, our 5th of the year, backed up for the 2nd year in a row, the RBC Heritage, right? 160 miles down the road from Augusta National. A really big major championship golf course. And now we come to this quaint little island. For you, are there any similarities? Is the whole thing different? What are you doing when you're building your teams out and your rosters for your DFS plays? What skills are you looking towards? And is it really that much different than last week?
I've always loved the fact that even before Harbour Town became a signature event, that a lot of players came here the week after a major, and they just want to take the week off after a major. But they come here and they love this place. And why do they love this place? Because it's a different type of golf than they play most weeks on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
It's not a super long course, and you just have to play your angles and pick your spots, and the greens are tiny. And a quote I always put in my article is from Matt Kuchar from a few years ago. He would love playing here, and unfortunately for Matt, he is not playing for the first time in 17 or 18 years now. That's a signature. He didn't qualify. He won here in 2014, and he likened it to playing chess, and you have to think your way around the board. And it's just not hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. You've got to think a couple of moves ahead. And, so I think that's why they like it. I think that's why they come here. I mean, you have to think your way around Augusta, but it's much shorter in many ways. And so I guess there are some similarities, but, we don't need to be a big hitter this week. Big hitters typically you don't have to be a big hitter to win. And even the big hitters take something off of it. So I really like this week. It's hard to get up for me, even after the Masters, but I think this is kind of exciting for me, and I'll be looking forward to it.
I love the way you put all that. And as you and I do this week after week, and you really start to dig in, and we're developing these conversations for everybody that's tuning in, I start to think about, wow, is Harbour Town Golf Links really that much different? Because all of the key pundit points that are being brought up. Oh, you got to hit greens and regulations. You got to hit the fairway. You got to, like the things that people are listing off this week. And I start to think to myself, well, that was pretty similar to last week. I mean, I know the greens are half the size, but at Augusta, you always had to hit the right part of the green. So the fact that the greens here on average are 3,700 square feet means, I think that's kind of like the area that the guys were hitting at last week at Augusta. They said the fairways are super wide at Augusta. The fairways are narrow here, but at Augusta, you always have to be on the right side. It's all about width and angles. It's like, in order to approach the green, I always think about number 9 there. If you're not down the right-hand side, then the mouth of the green isn't open to you. If you go down the left-hand side of number 9 at Augusta, then you got to come across, and that green sits at a funny angle. Well, the green, the fairways here, you have to be on the right side, and you have to not necessarily just hit the fairway, but you have to be inside the pines. And they've done the guys a favor this year. Last year, they put the rough at 2.5 inches, and they cut it in half this year. So it's down at 1.25 inches, which I think will help. But you still have to be in the right position to be able to get at the green. And then last week, we said it a lot. It's the toughest short game test on tour. But, the guys that win here, I mean, the last 10 winners have gained over 3 strokes on average against the field around the green. So, this is a tough one too. I mean, Pete Dye is known to be pretty diabolical. So from my respects, it turned out for me to be a lot more similar than I thought it would, which I guess begs, are we going to see the same names? I know we're going to probably get into Scottie here, but as you started to build out your DFS lineups and we go through the tiers, I'm taking you to 10,000s or the 13,000s, whatever you want to call it, but 10K and more. Who do you like, Scottie? And maybe is there at least one more name?
Well, the interesting thing about the DraftKings pricing this week is that we do have Scottie Scheffler all the way up at 13.3, which is the highest I think he's ever been, certainly in these last few months when they've changed their pricing structure. But because it's only a 69-player field, a limited field, there are no 5,000s. So, if you're going to play Scottie Scheffler this week, you are really pinching yourself on the other end. Of course, the good news is there's no cut. So you don't have to worry about your 6,000s sweating it out on Friday. So you'll get 4 rounds. That doesn't mean they'll finish well, but at least you won't rip up your ticket or whatever on Friday evening. So it's an interesting dynamic this week that's a little bit different. Look, as I wrote in my article, everyone's got to make up their own mind about Scottie Scheffler. What do I want to do? Does it matter that he's 4 days after his Masters? And we saw him going out celebrating Sunday night after he got home. He was out in a bar. I was a little surprised to see that. He wanted to rush home. I didn't know he wanted to rush home and go out. And now he's got to fly back to Hilton Head. So, I suspect he'll be ready to play and he'll be ready in the mix. But 13,300, which incidentally is $2,100 more than Rory McIlroy, is quite a decision everybody has to make this week.
Well, Len, you're a dad. I'm a dad, and I could just picture he flew back. I'm sure Meredith was exhausted from watching him all day, and she's in the late stages of her pregnancy. And he got home, and then she said hi, and he probably gave her a kiss, and then she went to sleep, and he was like, well, all right, what else am I going to do? I just won the green jacket. I mean, I give the guy credit. I mean, it seems like he had good intentions. Speaking of good intentions, or a familiarity with a place. Scottie went to his local bar. That was the story. How about Matt Fitzpatrick in the 9K land? Since that driver switch at the Players, Matt's been getting progressively better and better. Now he comes to a place where he's the defending champ, and he used to come on family vacations. Is he the featured name in your 9K range?
I think so, yeah. And interestingly, while doing my research this week, I read a quote from him from the past where he didn't think that this course really suited his game. And this was before he won, but before he won, he also had a 4th place a few years back. He's had a couple of top 15s. So he's been coming here for a while, and he's been playing well here for a while. So, yeah, I think, and he was not, what did he, top 25 at the Masters, I think, last week. So he was pretty on game. I do like him this week. And just jumping back up into the 10s, Ludwig Oberg, I do like him as well. I think, the interesting thing for him is, will a young player after his first major, not just his first Masters, be able to shift focus forward very quickly? He seems to be able to handle every challenge, so I think he will do well this week as well.
8K land. We've got some tour guys like a Russell Henley, and then we've got some names like a Cam Young. Which way are you leaning?
Wow. Have you seen my notes here? Because those are my 2 guys in the hey, no cheating. Those are my 2 guys in the 8,000s. Russell Henley, not the greatest Masters last week, but yeah, just a perfect course for him. He's played well here before. And Cam Young, no, this is not one of Cam Young's 412 runners up, but he did finish 3rd here a couple of years ago. So he, I wouldn't think of Cam Young normally as a player who would excel on a shorter course. But, I think he would take advantage of his length, and which is why he had a pretty good week last week. But I do like those two guys in the eights as well. They're my favorite plays. Yeah.
I mean, Cam Young, 5 top 10s in his last 8 majors. I mean, everyone brings up the 7 runner-ups, but man, that guy's game is built for major championships. He's long, straight. I mean, it's impressive for sure. And I'm going to take you back in time a little bit when we go into 7K land. So long before the 88th Masters, and we traveled down Magnolia Lane, these two guys played in the playoff. Denny McCarthy and Akshay Bhatia. Are they still relevant now that we're back to planet Earth and we're no longer at Augusta National Golf Club? I mean, they're in 7K land. They both gained over 21 strokes against the field. Can they do it again?
Yeah, I was looking at Bhatia, and then I remembered how many weeks in a row he's played. This might be 8 in a row or something like that. And so I don't know. I think he might have a little bit of a letdown after the Masters. So I did stay away from Bhatia this week, but I do like McCarthy, and there are a couple other guys in the 7s who I like. So there is hope to be able to play Scottie Scheffler at 13-3, because I do like Brian Harman, and I would completely discount that he played poorly last week at the Masters. He almost always plays poorly at the Masters, but he almost always plays well here. And again, this is a top 10 player in the world, and we've seen him in the 7,000s. He probably gets less respect than any of the other top 10 players, and probably understandably so. But I do like him at 78. I like Denny McCarthy at 78, where, if you can get really hot with the putter, and nobody can get hot like him, or very few can get hot like him. And Taylor Moore at 7,400. Played well here last year, 11th, playing well a lot of weeks coming into this tournament. Played well at the Masters last week. So there are 3 guys. I would not hesitate to put all of them in one lineup. I'd have to do the math and see what that involves with Scottie Scheffler, but you're talking, I don't know, you're up about $35,000, $36,000 for 4 guys there. So it is doable with Scottie Scheffler and some other quality plays down the board.
You must be reading my mail, because I think Taylor Moore is a very sharp pick this week for sure. And I'm gonna bring up a little controversy here in the 6K land just to get you started, because you love these conversations. But do we take the sponsors invite Webb Simpson, or do we take Nikolai Hochberg? Oh no, wait, Nikolai didn't make the field. He's down at Corrales, so that's probably a different show. But in 6K land, former champ, or where are we going at 6,000? Because we got to have some names, because people are going to have lineups with Scottie in it.
Webb Simpson won the tournament here in 2020. I mean, that seems to be a lifetime ago for him in terms of the quality of his game. But he's also been named PGA Tour Sponsor Invite of the Year for getting a sponsor invite every single week. Enough already. Enough. I mean, I know he's on the board and all of that, and maybe it's the region of the country, but I'm not big. I shouldn't say I'm not big on him. He really could surprise this week. There will be a few weeks out of the year where he will deliver. This probably could be a good week. He didn't make my list. I have Emiliano Grillo, who I was very high on last week, at least to make the cut and maybe make it. He hadn't missed a cut all year. He had never missed a Masters cut. And so when I pick him, this is what happens. Just the kiss of death for Emiliano Grillo. But I know a lot of people, you may feel this way. I feel this way. One of the hardest things for me is to come back to a guy the week after he burns you, because you still think it's good. He's a good play again. And so I really wrestled with this. But again, there's no cut this week. So I'm a little bit ahead of the game already with Grillo at 6,900. But he's a great ball striker. We all know that. And somehow he's putting much better this year. I didn't check his latest numbers. He was top 25 strokes gained putting before the Masters. And also way down at 6,300. I always like to give people an option under 65. Peter Malnati. What a month for him, playing in his first Masters and now playing in his first signature event. This is a very short course. He will not be outgunned this week. And, he's very good around the green and very good on the green. I'm not saying he's going to finish top 10 or anything, but I think he can very easily justify his bargain basement price.
When you were talking about Webb there, I think I figured out what PAC stands for. All these guys that are on the PAC, it means pack your bags. You're going to every event. That's it. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe Hochberg wasn't in the field. I was looking for him as a play, and I was going to research him, and I was like, what are we doing here? Anyway, I digress. Let's move on.
He fell out of the Aon Next 10 when he was, as he tumbled down the leaderboard. And Eric Monroyan got in. So not only did he, Hochberg was leading the Masters and then collapsed like 5 seconds later, but it's now had repercussions for this week as well. So it was really a very penal fall down the leaderboard for him. But you're right. He belongs here.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll just move on. Everyone's looking to hear the betting names that I'm featuring this week. Near the top of the board, I think it's time for Tommy Fleetwood to win a PGA Tour event. And I feel like he's the level of player. The guy has 7 DP World Tour wins. I mean, he does have win equity. And I don't think that he's the type of guy that isn't well received over here, that will never win on the PGA Tour. He's just way too talented. And the fact that he came in, what was it, third last week with a club caddy, at Augusta National, it just goes to show you that he's in a good frame of mind. He's very confident in his game. 10th at the Genesis, 7th at the Valero, all ball striking ballparks, all places where you got to hit the fairway and hit the green in regulation. He's got 4 starts here in his career, 3 top 25s, 1 top 10. He's one of those guys that you think about that just hits the ball straight. And he's just an approach, strokes gained approach machine. So for me, as a straight flusher, Tommy Fleetwood, I think he's great at the top of the board. You're going to find him in that like 20-1, 22. Hopefully people keep betting on Scottie and Ludwig and some others, and then he kind of climbs a little bit. Maybe we even get him at like 23, 24, which would be fantastic. And then a little further down the board, I'm going to feature Cam Davis. In 3 starts here, he's been 25th, 3rd, and 7th. And I'm sure in your research he popped too, because his strokes gained on property. In those 3 starts, he's averaging tee to green a gain of over 6 strokes on the field, right? He was 12th at the Masters. He was good at API, 18th, Houston 21st. Something about this place obviously catches his eye with 2 straight top 10s. So it's 66-1, 65-1, plus 6,500. I think he's a guy that had all those top 10s in the late summer, early fall. He's been striking the ball really good lately. He tends to score here, and everything kind of matches up. So I feel like he's the type of guy that if he gets hot, that he can compete with Scottie come Sunday afternoon. And then who knows? You make a couple of bomb putts, and Scottie misses 1 or 2, or maybe Scottie gets the phone call and he's out of here, and then Cam Davis wins by default. Either way, I mean, I like his chances. Did Cam pop for you?
Yeah, I think you have to consider him, his course history here, the way he's been playing. And, interestingly, I always thought of Cam Davis as just a long hitter. He's so big, can really hit the ball far. But go back and look at his results. And he does very well on the shorter courses, which is the exact opposite of what I would have thought. But he seems to do his best work or much of his good work on the shorter tracks. And for whatever reason, yeah. So I think he's an interesting play. And we'll just see what he does. Imagine him up against Scottie, and then will he be able to handle the pressure the way Max and Colin Morikawa and Ludwig Hochberg were thrust into last week?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Hochberg, because if you like the way Hochberg hits it, right, and you have to like his chances this week. I mean, the last time he was in the Low Country on the weekend, he shot 122. That's 61-61 if you're not good at math. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. But Hochberg's going to be right around 14-15. You can get Cam, who's a very similar player. I'm not saying his quality a player, but the skill set's very similar. He's just going to bomb that driver down there. Good with a wedge, good scoring-wise. So at 66 over 15, I like the way that sounds better. And you know what, Glenn? I always like the way that you sound on Tuesdays. It was fantastic. This little run we've been on here. I've been on the road with checking in with you, doing the rundown. Last week we were at Augusta National. This week we're down here at Sea Pines Resort or Harbortown Golf Links. So next week I'll be happy when we start at 11:15 to be back home in my studio and in my own bed. But this one's been 2 great weeks in a row. And next week, well, the rules and everything change. So I know you're going to do your homework because it's the team event, and it changes up everything from a DFS perspective and betting as well. So people, you better tune in to the rundown.